one trend that I would put out there, I'm seeing it in the most innovative companies, is every CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that I speak to today at financial institutions, I am seeing a trend where under their purview, you have, on one hand, cybersecurity, on the other hand, risk management or fraud detection. And I wonder, what does that do for tool vendors? It's clear there's going to be a concept of, if you start to want to do proactive threat management or risk management before it even hits your systems, it's just people logging in, they're the right holders, fraud, or someone gets a link, you're not even aware as a financial institution. These two, sides of the house need to evolve and understand this. The world has changed.
This is the FinTech One-on-One podcast, the show for FinTech enthusiasts looking to better understand the leaders shaping FinTech and banking today. My name is Peter Renton, and since 2013, I've been conducting in-depth interviews with FinTech founders and banking executives. Today on the show, I'm delighted to welcome Nuno Sebastião, CEO and co-founder of Feedzai, one of the world's largest independent risk management platforms serving banks and fintechs. We discuss his unlikely journey starting as the first Portuguese engineer at the European Space Agency. That's a fun story in and of itself. A global fintech powerhouse with over 700 employees across 4 continents. Nuno shares critical insights into how the industry must shift from detecting fraudulent activity to understanding customer intent, the importance of explainable AI in maintaining consumer trust, and why today's most sophisticated threat actors are targeting the weakest link in the security chain, us. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's get on with the show. Welcome to the podcast, Nuno.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Peter.
My pleasure. So let's kick it off by giving listeners a little bit of background. You've got a pretty interesting background, having worked in a variety of different roles, including for the European Space Agency, which I think you might be the first person on the podcast who has done that kind of thing. So why don't you tell us some of the highlights of your career before Feedzai?
Awesome. So first of all, thank you for having me. I am, as a person, and someone that is an engineer, I'm a builder at heart. And since young age, having done numerous build attempts at things, I really wanted to be, at the, what I would call the forefront of what's out there that you could be building. I'm Portuguese, so coming from a place like Portugal, where it's not, it's a Silicon Valley, the opportunities are limited. So I put myself out there and I say, what's the most challenging thing I could be doing, or could, knowing that, interestingly enough, my goal was always to spend a substantial amount of time in the Bay Area, in the core of what building products is all about. And this was like 1999, 2000, as I was going through undergrad student, and then .com came about. So there was not a lot of opportunities for a Portuguese guy to migrate to the Bay Area. So what I did was, okay, what's the next best alternative? And it happened that Portugal had just joined the European Space Agency as a full member of the organization, and there was a call for the first people, they call it the first pioneers, to actually go to the agency. I applied, and lo and behold, I was the first Portuguese at the Operations Center. Operations Center is, remember when you see, space movies and, the Houston Control Center? Right. That's what the Space Operations Center is like. And imagine you're 21, 22, and someone says, yeah, you can go work on that. Like, whoa, right. That is cool, right?
That is cool.
So that's what I did. I applied, I got lucky. They picked me. So I ended up there for what was supposed to be a 9-month internship, and that ended up to be an 8-year journey.
Right. So then Tell us a little bit about the seeds for Feedzai. What did you see? Jumping from the space agency to starting like an anti-fraud company isn't an obvious thing to
Not
do.
at all.
So what was the thinking there?
It was simple. So, there we worked in really technical, complex challenges. What I tell people sometimes is, look, if something in space breaks, it's not that you go there and fix it, right? So you have to really ensure that those systems work and they're resilient and robust and whatnot. On the flip side is you're looking at very long time spans, of projects, 20 years, 30 years type of things. And that, once you're there in a few years, you kind of crave more because, what you're working is too far out. So myself and a couple of friends that had worked with me before, one of them, they're my co-founders in the company at Feedzai. One of them, Pedro, was my thesis supervisor when I was an undergrad student. He went on, he actually moved to the US at the time. He was a Fulbright scholar and he was doing, his PhD there. Paulo was the third co-founder. He actually visited me and worked with me at the space agency, and we built a really strong relationship. And one day I put to them, look, you two are the smartest person I know. Why don't we go and build something? The worst thing that can happen is we come back to these jobs and we have a reputation and we'll get a job. So why don't we try? I mean, we're at the right age. It's kind of like in your late 20s, early 30s. Let's go do this. And they were fool enough, or they were brave enough, depending how you want to put it, to take the challenge on. So I quit first a year because we didn't really have no money. I quit first and started building a team. There was a research team that we brought from that they were working on. And what we had based on our backgrounds, I came from the space agency, and there I was working in simulating real world environments, so call it simulation of the world in a way, or reality. They were coming at it from the large scale data processing world and the machine learning world. Okay. And so we built a piece of kit, a piece of technology that essentially could in real time correlate a large number of data, and infer patterns. That's what we built. And then, and I say this to many founders, is building a piece of technology that has some particular aspects. That's the easy part. Then the hard part is make sure that that fits in a world and solves a problem that a sufficiently large number of people are willing to pay for so that you can make a business. That process, took a while. And that's how, through a number of years, trial and error, where can we apply this technology? We were kind of drawn, and there's always internal factors, external factors. We were kind of drawn to, what at the time was called fraud monitoring, or transactional fraud for cards. So it was one step at a time that brought us into that world, and then we built a company around it.
Right. Okay, so then what have you kind of built since those days? And maybe you could just how do you describe Feedzai today?
Yeah. So as a company, and here I have to, for the audience, mention something that is really, you really have to have people that believe in you. And so we raised a little bit of money. I moved to the US, so my dream of actually moving to the Bay Area came through in about 2012 or so. And it was astonishing because a lot of people helped you. A lot of people believed in you. And you start to build on that. And you say, okay, where's the world going? So what we built as a company is a reflection of where the world is going at different points in time. 2015, when we were starting on this, it was all about mobile adoption, right? If you remember, in 2012, people say, what's your mobile strategy? No one says that anymore today, right? But at the time, that was the thing. So, how do we protect consumers in an emerging mobile world? So that was the first iteration of the company, what you'd call transaction fraud monitoring for mobile devices, and the new, world of doing everything there wasn't even wallets at the time, in an online app that would allow you to do that in your phone. But of course, then the world moves, right? And you have okay, you're not only doing your transactions, new generations are coming up that wants to live entirely in a digital world. They don't want, they want to buy services, open an account, do all of that without ever seeing anyone physically. How do you deal with that? So new use cases, driven a lot by listening to your customers, started to shape your understanding of the world and your product roadmap. So things like identity, how do we validate identity? And then later on, even things like compliance. So today, what the company is, as we're, mature and robust, is we offer a suite of products under one term we call risk ops. You can call risk management. That basically for identity, things like account opening, onboarding of consumers, and then for when you're in the system, transactional monitoring. So when you're doing stuff with your app, online, physical, you name it, combining all of that, and then for compliance solutions as well. So today we operate a company according to these three buckets. And of course, as we mature and as we evolve, others will come up. Today, you have a world where we're seeing the way risk manifests itself is not so much as a function of someone trying to commit fraud, but entire, let's say, scams or entire, deep fakes. They're actually wider cybersecurity issues. How do we play in that world, right? And when I mentioned to you, and I mentioned, I would say this to everyone in the audience: speak with your clients, see how their organizations are being shaped. You'll understand, and you'll get signals of where to take your organization into the future as you evolve your product.
Right. Okay. So I do want to do a deep dive into some of these fraud issues, because it's such an important topic. It's a hot topic for, I think every fintech company, bank, credit union, you name it. Everyone is focused on it right now. And your recent report said that more than 50% of fraud today is AI generated. Maybe you could sort of paint a picture for us. What does an AI-generated scam look like?
So this is the interesting thing of when you're in an industry for a period of time, you see it morph, right? You go back years, it was largely what I would call an artisanal. The bad actors, it was largely artisanal. It was not very sophisticated. It was the level of sophistication, but it was largely artisanal. Because people have to physically do things, steal your credit card, skim it, clone it, all of those things. Today, and the industry fixed those holes, kind of like, okay, terminals are safe, more friction here, more friction there. In a world where the cost of some of these AI techniques is, I won't say zero, but very, very low, what has been realized the last, I would say, couple of years, 3 years maybe, is that actually the weakest link is not the physical terminals anymore. It's you, the person. The weakest link in the chain is actually the individual. And all of us, without exception, we're actually quite susceptible and easy to quote unquote trick. So what do you see today? What is, let's say, coined or termed scams are largely attempts at tricking you into doing certain actions. I've seen things like there's no tool in the world that can actually stop fraud, because you, as the owner of an account, as the owner with your credentials, with your logins, with your passwords, you're actually committed, you're doing the operation, but you've been tricked. So how do vendors and tools like mine operate in a world where no one stole anything, no one impersonated anyone, you're genuinely believing you should be sending that money or buying that good, but you, the user. So how do we operate, right? That's just one way. And the other one is, because of the cost coming so down, it's just a statistical aspect. It's just a brute force. You send out so many, you flood the world with attacks, that even if the conversion rate is minimal, it still pays off because the cost is low. So it's a very rational industry that I see building. And some of it, very recently we're seeing, given all the dynamics out there, state sponsored. So these are actually very sophisticated players. And I wonder, and I work with, our colleagues in the industry is, okay, assume fraud is free. How do you play? How do you do it? How do you protect your consumers?
I hear what you're saying, and I think it is. It's pretty obvious when anyone like today. I probably get, I don't know, between 2 and 4 texts a day, which seem like they're fraudulent. Like your Coinbase is huge. Everyone's doing.
Yeah, I get a lot of vouchers and a lot of codes.
Yes, exactly. So, how do you build systems that can help the sort of the less sophisticated user, shall we say, who's not getting 2 to 4 a day? They may be getting 1 a week, and they go, or 1 a month. They go, look, someone's hacked my Coinbase account. This is horrible. And then what? How do you even try to protect that consumer?
We have a very clear thesis, and it's based on 2, let's say, axes of change. One is you have to move from detecting fraud, like this action is fraudulent. That's not good enough anymore. That was good 5 years ago. It doesn't work anymore. You have to move to understanding what we call intent. What is your intent, Peter? Do I know enough about you to understand? I'll give you a very concrete example. In my household, Netflix account is on my name. My wife gets a text, say, "Oh, your Netflix activation code has expired. Please click here to renew." She clicks on it. Only after clicking, she realizes, but hold on, Netflix is not on my name, it's on your name. It's in your account. Intent is important. If the tools at play knew that, well, the Netflix account is not in her name. So how do you understand that? That is a complex issue. It's an issue that requires collaboration between good players. Some people would say, well, we have to share even more. It's not I wouldn't call it data share. I would call it insights, understanding all of that. But there's more, there's to that. And then understanding more than just a simplistic, transactional or more simplistic, what is happening right now? Like, what's the intent? A LinkedIn message with a physical link, that a Netflix message with a link that doesn't go to Netflix.
Yeah.
They would never do that. That was not their intent. Because if everyone says, you will, many banks say, we will never send you a message. Well, but people, whenever they receive a message from the bank, they will click on it. We're just wired like that. It was not their intent. So this is how I put it. You have to understand intent, and you'll need to know more. But then balancing that with privacy concerns and all of those things, you will need to know more about, the environment of what's going on of that household, or of that account, or of that, Coinbase account, as you were mentioning, and whatnot.
Have you changed your systems then to provide like more of a holistic view of the customer so they can recognize intent? Because intent doesn't seem like it's all that easy to recognize.
It's very hard. Luckily, we have seen so much and with such high level of density in terms of behavior. Because why? Because we have the identity solutions, the transaction solutions. When you combine all of that data, you can actually see at an early stage, let's be clear, but the glimmers of, I understand the behavior of this cohort here. This cohort could be a household, could be a person, could be, whatever level of granularity. And when you go into that, you say, this, I didn't see over the last 2 years any payment or any opening of an account in one of these providers. Why is the person now clicking on something to go pay that? That was clearly not the intent.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is the users, the potential users, that be the fintechs or the banks or whatnot, they're way behind in adoption. And that's why the tools that today or used to combat these type of scams or these type of approaches, they're highly ineffective because they're still based on the premise of what was before. But what we're seeing is in the places where there's this, as you call it, more holistic approach, they do it in a number of ways. For instance, a lot of deployment of newer Gen AI type of techniques into the conversation when you're trying to dissuade someone that said, "Sir, we have some questions about this payment. You shouldn't do it, even though it's you doing the payment. Let me ask you a few questions about this payment." And then you kind of start. And then this technique helping you, because the problem is, how do you do this at scale in a cheap way?
Right.
Or in a cost-effective way? It's not, if we were just stopping one event, it would be easy. You call the person and say, "Look, you're sending money to, I don't know, pick your destination. Are you, oh yeah, someone I met online, whatnot." Well, are you sure? But this is costly, right?
Right.
The cost of stopping that goes. So the challenge, how do you do it at scale? Some of these techniques can give because you have context. You understand the intent of, oh yeah, I'm sending it because someone I met online is a friend and he asked me to pay for, fathers or mothers' bills because they don't have enough money, and I'm just, doing a gesture of goodwill. Okay, let's do some, and then you say, okay, that is not what you should be doing. You're being scammed. That is costly. What we do is build some tools that allow us to do this at a lower cost at scale. But Peter, let's be clear. This newer wave of fraud techniques enabled by some, AI developments, it's new. We're talking about the last 12,
Right.
18 months, right? Or maybe 2 years. So I'm still not seeing a mass adoption of how to solve it. The way it's being solved today is, frankly, is largely speaking, education of people.
Right.
And telling them, don't click on the link, which is a large part, but a lot of it still goes through. So if I as a vendor, which I always obsess of what do I need to do for the next 3 to 5 years, it has to be around this area.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, as you say, there's so much trust with banks. I mean, that's one of the things that banks are really built on, and even lots of fintechs these days have a lot of trust. And, so you get that text or email from what seems like your bank. Hey, it's got the Chase logo on there, Capital One logo, and you don't really look carefully at the link. Mm-hmm. The link looks like it's going to Chase. Mm-hmm. You say you've got this bank as a customer, and your systems, when someone's clicking on a link that looks like it's Chase, this is outside of Chase's purview, right? I mean, that you can't build systems to catch that necessarily.
It's very interesting as you're saying it, because think about it. Chase doesn't even know that's going on.
Right.
They don't even know.
Until someone forwards them the email, they don't know, yeah.
So that's a good point. So for instance, proactively, these financial organizations need to understand, and again, because these things are longer. So what happens today? Today, you basically get an email from them, Chase. We have noticed that some of our consumers or customers have received, misleading or fraudulent messages. Please don't click on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's still reacting.
Right.
Is there a world where, if you combine risk management with cybersecurity and proactive threat management, you can say, I picked up that there was a massive attempt out there at trying to get users to click on Chase messages without even starting to receive, phone calls. Or how early can I understand that?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a proactive versus some transaction was initiated or someone tried to log in. How does it work? How do companies like ours work in a world that is proactive? One trend that I would put out there, I'm seeing it in the most innovative companies, is every CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that I speak to today at financial institutions, I am seeing a trend where under their purview, you have, on one hand, cybersecurity, on the other hand, risk management or fraud detection. And I wonder, what does that do for tool vendors? It's clear there's going to be a concept of, if you start to do proactive threat management or risk management before it even hits your systems, just people logging in, they're the right holders, fraud, or someone gets a link, you're not even aware as a financial institution. These two, sides of the house need to evolve and understand this. The world has changed, as always, but just this normal financial institutions are reacting. I would put maybe not fast enough, but they're certainly reacting.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So I want to talk about your trust framework for responsible AI. I was reading about that in my research before this interview. Maybe you can explain what the letters in trust stand for, and then what it's for, and why explainability, or how you're approaching explainability.
Mm-hmm. Look, it's all about transparency and responsible, right? And how do you, in a transparent, responsible, and explainable way, create trust in these systems? The wordplay we've used basically comes down to, I have to be able, due to the world and the market I work in, to build models that don't discriminate. Henceforth, the responsible part. Build models I can go to a regulator. In the world we work in, the one asset that a bank has today is the trust that you as a consumer deposit in them. That's why when there's no trust in the bank, there's a bank run and the bank goes down. It's literally that simple. And so what we've built in our technology, we started from first principles that our system had to be extremely easy to explain what was going on in our modeling techniques. And I mentioned my co-founder, Pedro. He leads our trust. He actually came up with our trust framework. And we brought in a bunch of other institutions and whatnot that basically are also researching as part of that. What does that mean, Peter, in reality? It means we built machine learning techniques out there that we made open source and that other vendors can use, or other industries, when they want to have absolute transparency in the model. In technical terms, this means if a model that says this is risk or this is fraud, it will tell you why it reached that conclusion. And for the audience members more technically inclined, will agree that this is a very hard challenge in our world. I can give you an output on a model, but then, most of the times it's very hard to explain why did the model reach that conclusion. It's just the way it's built. We have done in a way that we can poke inside. And then there's elements like safety and whatnot into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the disadvantages that we have as the good guys. The bad guys don't have to do explainability, right? They just do whatever the model can do.
They don't have to do auditable, right? And look, could we build techniques that wouldn't do that? And if we do deploy them, we could. But the one thing we don't want to do is affect consumers, because it comes down to the trust in the financial services, and say, well, I just stopped your activity in the bank and I just blocked your account. Why? I actually don't know why, but but it correlates with we cannot do that. I think that's a good thing, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. No, understood.
Right.
That's fair. You don't want a machine arbitrarily closing down accounts, and that would be a nightmare for PR and marketing.
Exactly. And more than that, think about it. We're talking about the more simplistic use case. It's just kind of like, okay, stop a payment.
Right.
Okay, you can retry the payment, or you can use some other card or whatnot. But what about if it is you requesting a loan, or you requesting, a refinancing on your mortgage, or you requesting, it can actually impact your life. Right. So, the worst thing that this industry can have is, impacting people's lives and decisions. without being able to, explain why are you not giving credit to that person or to that company, right? So there, I for once, like to work with regulators. I for once like to actually be in pretty much all our financial institutions. We were what it consider a critical systemic vendor. That basically means that we have to, we're typically in a group of 5 to 10 companies working with these banks that have a systemic risk to them, and so the level of audit and compliance that they put us through, it's extremely high, almost excruciatingly high. But it's for a reason, right? And I think in the end, if you look at in a bigger context of what the industry has gone through and whatnot, I believe with balance, it's doing a good job of still keeping bad actors at bay while working in what you'd call a far more restrictive environment than a bad actor that doesn't have to concern about compliance and data privacy and PII. I don't care about any of that, right? They just use it all. But I think, it's a balance. So we're always working with, compliance officers and the regulators throughout the world, providing our point of view. And I believe that we help them a lot when they're drafting their policies. We're helping them a lot with our, here's what I mean from a technical standpoint, some of those things.
Right, gotcha.
And because we invest so much in things like trust and our responsible AI, they look at us, oh, this is just not a vendor that is trying to remove barriers and try to make it as easy as possible. They actually put substantial amount of money and investment behind these type of things. They actually believe in these type of things.
Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the big names that you've shared a stage with. I've been in the audience for some of these. You got at Money 2020. I remember the Richard Branson conversation, Steve Wozniak, Stephen Hawking. I mean, these are some of the giants of business and technology over the last few decades. What did you learn from these conversations?
It's very interesting. You realize, then as an entrepreneur, that one thing that these guys all have, and these persons, and is an insatiable curiosity of unpacking things, going to understanding to the lower levels of detail, and really understanding a hard problem. And then what they're good at doing is, step one is understanding it. Step two is communicating how to go about it, how to fix it, how to address it. You would call it a vision, right? And then, with their energy, engagement, bringing people with them in that journey, right? That's no different than, what I'm trying to do here and what you're trying to do. Is kind of like we try to, understand the problem, focus on it, be really good at it, and then bring people along in that journey. This is what from all of them, it's the one thing, the level of detail that they can go to in some of the areas is just astonishing.
Right. So we were chatting before we hit record here. I know you're in Porto, Portugal today, and you are born and bred in Portugal. But this is a very global company, and you talked about some of your travels. Maybe give us a sense of the scale you're at, what geographical footprint, like how many people Feedzai has, that sort of thing.
We are fortunate. When you start out to build these type of companies, 3 people, you always kind of like wonder, until what can we make of this? And today I was in June, I'll give you an example. The one thing I really love is to spend time with my clients, my customers, my partners. And I like to visit them in person. So in June, I did something like, Singapore, Dubai, Sydney, then fly to SF, then fly to London, to New York, then to London, then to Paris, and then to Lisbon. And so today we are present in the 4 corners in the world. Like literally, we have people in Australia, we have people in Singapore, we have people in Sao Paulo, we have, of course, a lot of people in Europe, we have a lot of people in the US. Totally, I don't want to misquote, but I think it's well over 700 people in the company. One thing I'm really proud is, for my leadership team. My CFO is in New York. My head of marketing is just outside of New York. My head of sales is in London. Engineering we do from Portugal. My head of customer success is based out of London/Italy, with a large team in the US. So it's really, truly, truly global, and truly, close to our clients. And one thing that we really believe is on the more, let's call it technical side, or SM, what we call SMEs, subject matter experts. People. One advice I would give to entrepreneurs and that are building their companies: really hire people from the industry where you're trying to solve your problem. We did that in the US, we did that in Europe, we did that in Latin America, we did that in APAC. And when you bring in these people some of them have been practitioners in whatever domain, and you bring them in, it really transforms. It really informs how to build product. What problems within your problem area should we be really focused on? Where to invest your dollars? So we're well on that journey. We put a path for the next 3-4 years to our board. We're executing on that. And I would argue that today we are by far the largest independent vendor in this space. And we built it from nothing. By independent, I mean not public or not owned by a large conglomerate,
sure,
where this is just a division or a small division within that much wider purview of action. So we're focused on what we do.
Right.
And on what we do, we keep on winning in all the regions at a scale that I would challenge, no one comes close to. And that gives me a lot of joy, of course, right? Business is growing, you're hiring people, your sales are growing. But I also see it as a big responsibility, right? That you have towards your clients, towards investors, towards your people. And if we keep on this path, we, will continue to work with all these clients, and we'll continue to be this, I won't say it's not massive for the sake of size, but this really big independent company addressing the crisis or the problem of risk management in financial services.
Okay, well, that's a good place to end it, Nuno. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. It is, as I said, it's such important work that you're doing and helping so many in the industry. So thanks and best of luck to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
See ya. I think it's really interesting that fraudsters have moved away from attacking technical infrastructure to targeting people directly. As Nuno said, the weakest link is not the physical terminals anymore, it's you, the person. The weakest link in the chain is actually the individual. This insight is crucial because it means the traditional security measures are no longer sufficient. The industry needs new approaches that can protect consumers from themselves when they've been manipulated by increasingly sophisticated social engineering attacks. This is where Feedzai and the entire anti-fraud industry is moving. Anyway, that's it for today's show. If you enjoy these episodes, please go ahead and subscribe, tell a friend, or leave a review. And thanks so much for listening.